government has all the money, the provincial government has all the power, and the municipalities have all the...
This is Mayor Jim Diodati, and today I sat down with him for an hour to discuss some alarming problems.
44% of Canadians think that Canada is allowing too many immigrants into the country. Last year was 27%.
Our role right now is to build more houses faster, but we need to do it with all three levels of government. It's a team approach. Be part of the solution. We're the #1 leisure destination in the country. We have 14 million people. 40,000 people count on tourism to feed their families.
Despite the major responsibilities federal and provincial governments have, municipal governments are where you see active change.
Niagara Falls is up there with the big brands of the planet. We should be proud.
I strongly believe, and you do as well, that municipalities are the core that holds a community together, like municipal governments, because people feel heard, people feel seen. My question to you is, what legacy do you wish to leave when the time comes for you to step down as mayor?
And that's a great question, because that's the whole reason I'm in this job, is for legacy. You don't get in it for the money. And I worked for myself for 25 years, and I've had some very good opportunities if I wanted to leave politics. And I, at one point, I had a really good opportunity, and I had a very tough decision. And I reflected on it, I prayed on it, I meditated on it, and I stuck it out, because I realized I ran, and I started out with a 10-year business plan. Something most politicians don't do. They usually start with a 4-year plan to get reelected. And I realized some of the lofty goals you can't do in one term. It might take 2, might take 3 terms. And I realized that's a big leap of faith for people to take, but I got to lay out the plan. I can't have it in my head. I have to lay it out so they understand. So my thinking, and originally I went away for school, I didn't intend to come back. I started a business, and that led into another business. And next thing I knew, I was married, I had kids, and then I had roots here, and I wasn't going to go anywhere. So I made a decision. If I'm going to stick around, I got to make this town, help make this town better for my kids, so they won't have that same feeling that they need to leave. Or if it's not tourism, they won't want to do it. And if it's better for my kids, that means it's good for everybody.
Well, on that point about the community, I actually called the Salvation Army, and they had spoken very highly of you because you volunteer, let me get this right, the Christmas Kettle campaign. Every year, they say you do like 2 shifts?
Yeah, 2 or 3, depending.
Why?
I think you need to lead by example. And we're asking the community to come out and help the less fortunate. And I think part of your success, part of your payback or pay forward, is you got to give back. You got to do something for someone else, not expecting anything in return. And I could say it all day long. I'd rather just do it. And I don't tell people, I don't announce it. We just go do it. And I stand there and I promote it, because I want the rest of the community to realize that's what a good community does. They just take care of each other. And I love that. Like a good family, they take care of each other. You don't ask, well, why should I? And what have you done for me lately? If someone needs you, you're there. And I can tell you, 5 years ago, when I got cancer and I got very, very sick, the community came together and took care of me, and my family took care of me. And it's a really good feeling, like it's a wonderful life, the Christmas story. And the fact that we're not just a city, we're a community. And I think that's sometimes what people lose. They think it's not about bricks and mortar and roads and parks. It's about the people that live here. So yeah, I do that. I do most things I don't talk about, I just do. But people that are out in the community, they see and they understand, and people are more inclined to do what you do, not what you say.
Yeah, that's true. They actually ended up raising, thanks to your help. And from what I understand, I know you don't say this, which is why I'm saying it. You push the community and your team to actually take part in volunteering at the Christmas Kettle campaign as well every year.
Yeah.
So they raised, Nancy was telling me, $65,000 was their goal. They had raised about, I think it was $72,700.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Isn't that incredible?
It's really great. That's,
and you participated in that.
I did. And you know what? I just love giving back. And I've always been, since I was young, I was raised that you give back, and whether it's at your church or your community group or your neighborhood, you give back, right? It's part of the village kind of mentality. Everybody brings something to the table.
Well, Mayor Diodati is joining us today. For those tuning in, Mayor of Niagara Falls. Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment. So I'm excited to talk to you about a couple different things.
Yeah.
We have a few different topics to cover. We're covering immigration, we're covering housing, we're covering community, healthcare, tourism, et cetera, and what it all means for my generation. I think that's the important part.
Well, and I agree. And that's the whole key, right? You have to communicate and be connected to everybody. Otherwise, once they stop paying attention to you, you might as well talk to yourself.
Yeah.
And the only way is to be engaged. And I know with my kids, so I still have one teenager at home, and my son's 17, my daughters are 20 and 22. And I realize if you want to reach them, you got to speak their language. So I try to.
Well, that's beautiful. On the point of immigration, let's dive into that a little bit. So there was a study done actually recently. 44% of Canadians think that Canada is allowing too many immigrants into the country. Last year was 27%. So it's significantly risen. What are you hearing right now in Niagara Falls? What are people thinking? What are people saying?
Well, first off, Canada is a country of immigrants. I mean, aside from the Indigenous, we all came from somewhere. And I say us, our families at one point came on a plane or a boat or on a bus or whatever the case may be. So we can't forget that. Second thing is, I think it's the best country in the world. So I don't blame people for wanting to come here. I think the one great way that we can have people put their toe in the water is to come here for their education. Then you get a flavor for the people, for the land, and see if it's a place you want to be. And healthy immigration is important because our birth rates are too low, that if we don't have immigration, we're not going to have enough people here to build the roads for tomorrow and to work in the nursing homes and to be the nurses and the doctors and the tradespeople. So we have to have healthy immigration. Part of the problem, I think, is we got a little off track where maybe we got a little too much immigration, and we didn't think about housing. These people have to have a place to live. And unfortunately, we go by the old economic model of supply and demand. There's way too much demand, not enough supply. And you know what that does? It drives the price up of houses and of rent. So we're in a situation now where affordable is become crazy. Attainable is, it's become out of reach for so many people. And the idea of owning a house is not realistic for a lot of people.
It's not. We'll get into housing as well. I'm excited to dive into that. I'm curious, what role does the municipality play in immigration, specifically the municipality?
So we don't, it's federal, 100% federal government. They have complete control over all immigration. The way we play a role is housing, to help build housing. Now, you know, it's funny. There's a Hazel McCallion, the former mayor of Mississauga for 38 years, used to say, you know, the federal government has all the money, the provincial government has all the power, and the municipalities have all the problems, right? And we only get about
You saved me from saying it.
Yeah. Well, we only get about 8 cents out of every tax dollar. Most things have been downloaded to us, so we have to pay for so much with so little, and really most of our money comes from property taxes, and a lot of things should not be funded from property taxes, like social services, like helping with homeless and mental health and addictions. But here we are, the problem's on our doorstep, you can't ignore it. And like they say, there's no innocent bystanders. You know, if you're aware of it, you should get engaged. So our role right now is to build more houses faster, but we need to do it with all three levels of government. We need the level with the money and the level with the power to work with those of us that are going to actually build it as a team.
I mean, you said back, I think it was, February, with CTV News Toronto, you said that it was like 87 rooms, and then we're hearing numbers like 2,000. What's Niagara Falls seeing today, right now?
I don't have the latest number. It's over 1,000.
I know it's hard to track.
Yeah,
too.
And the federal government doesn't give us all the information. Here's the thing. They tell us how many are coming. They don't tell us how many have left. So we don't know how many at any given time. We just know how many more have come and what countries they've come from.
And a lot of them are non-permanent residents as well, so they are leaving.
Well, we think they are. We don't know. I know the ones that crossed in Quebec at Roxham Road from New York. I was even in Quebec City last March, and I met with their minister that was dealing with the same situation in Quebec, where they finally said in Quebec, we can't handle this many people. We need the rest of the country. They call it Team Canada approach. And then same with municipalities. Niagara Falls per capita had more than anywhere else in the country. And we're saying we can't handle this many people, where at one point we had more than 5,000 refugees staying in our community, asylum seekers. And it was too much of a strain on our school system, where they're setting up classrooms in the libraries and the gymnasiums and the hallways. I talked to the principals and the teachers. Our food banks were getting overwhelmed. Like the community was doing its part, the churches, coats, trying to get food, everyone coming together to help. But we said we need a bigger, more collective approach to this. But the federal government was dealing directly with the hotels. They didn't deal with the municipality. They just kind of updated us on the numbers.
Wait, hold on. So I didn't know that. So they went right to the hotel.
Yes.
Not you.
No. They let us know initially there'd be a small group of asylum seekers staying in the city at one of the local hotels. Don't worry, it won't really have much of an impact on you. Just so you're aware, that's what's going on. If you notice things are a little different or they seem a little off. And yeah, when you see people, when it's snowing out, wearing spring jackets and they're wearing running shoes walking through the snow, you think why are they doing that?
Well, that puts a significant strain on your social systems here in Niagara Falls. Like, food, because this isn't they're not making $100,000 a year. Like, this is low income as well, right? So majority. So food banks, other forms of housing. I mean, how do you, I guess, how do you plan for this at all? How do you handle this issue?
Well, it was very difficult to plan for it. And especially it just kept growing, kept doubling. The numbers kept going higher until we had several thousand living in our community. And we're trying to do our best, try to do our part, realize they didn't choose to be in this situation. Maybe there's a war where they're coming from.
Yeah.
They're being persecuted. And I get that. But then we hit a certain point where I started to get pushback here from people saying, hey, I'm on a senior's supplemental income of only $750 a month. And I paid into the system my whole life. Why are they, getting this kind of money? Or I'm on ODSP. And
I spoke to a server this morning that's lived in Niagara Falls for over 30 years, and she said something very similar. What's your response to people who say that?
Well, I'm empathetic to their situation.
Yeah.
They're saying, I'm struggling to pay my rent. I've got to choose between food and rent. And I live here. I've been paying into this system. These are people that came here that are just taking from the system. And yeah, when they get here, that's what they're doing. They're taking from the system. I know the eventual goal is that they're going to fill the jobs that no one's filling, like the trades jobs and some of the frontline jobs that Canadians, migrant worker jobs, picking fruit that Canadians are choosing not to do. I know that's the plan, but I think in a perfect world, it would work right. It was too much, too fast. We weren't prepared for it.
So on that point, I think Canada and Canadian citizens still want to be assisting people. They want to help, right? And from all the way from federal to provincial to municipal, most politicians say the same thing. We want to help. We want to be there for people because Canada is a fantastic country. What can we do as Canadian citizens to not necessarily take care, but show support for what's going on? Because it's not necessarily their fault.
Right. Well, I think the part that bothers a lot of people is they said, when our family came here originally, we came, my grandfather came with $20 and nobody gave him 10 cents. He had to get a job immediately and blah, blah, blah. And they say today, in today's world, we give them a room, we feed them, we do this, we give them social services. And I understand that, but that's back then and this is today. Back in those days, we didn't have welfare and we didn't have all these unemployment insurance and we've got all these social safety nets today. So the world's changed. It's not fair to judge someone today on the way we did things 100 years ago. But having said that, I'm empathetic because some of these people just feel that they're getting a raw deal. They're the resident here paying into the system, and they feel that they're in a worse place than the new Canadians or the new soon-to-be Canadians. And I get that. So I see both sides of it. I don't know if there's the perfect answer or the panacea to the situation, but I do think the first thing is if they're going to be in our community, it has to be the other levels of government that helps us. And especially if there's other pressures, like now they're taking up more of our housing, which is driving the price up even further for rents and for purchasing a house. We need help. And the only way to help is to build more houses and to build them quicker.
On the point of housing, I'm glad you brought that up. We'll jump into that. Your definition of housing, I personally feel like it's changing. It's not the same definition it was 40 years ago. What is it to you today?
Well, for me, I always had a vision of owning a house. I wanted home ownership. And today, it's become like today in today's dollars, it's much harder to own a house. So I understand if I'm a young person trying to save up for a house, I might think, I don't think that I'm ever going to own it. Ironically, I was in Singapore recently where most people don't own their houses. They almost all rent there. It's a real interesting setup. And I asked them, oh, how do you feel about that? Are you okay? To them, it's just the way they do it and it doesn't bother them one bit. So today, first of all, the houses are much smaller. The yards are significantly smaller, a lot more density, a lot more, fourplexes and small apartments and condos, things that didn't exist when I was a kid. Everything was either an apartment, a semi, or a single detached house.
Do you feel that that's required in order to keep up with the demand of housing right now?
Well, yeah, because you need lower price things for entry into the market, for more rentals. We need more of everything and we need more density because the other thing is urban sprawls become another problem because the bigger the yard, the more yards you're going to need, more land you're going to need means more roads you're going to have to put in, more sewers, more water.
Higher cost.
More, right. And as you expand your infrastructure, more roads for the buses to go down, more for the snow plows to go down. So what they've learned is if you can build tighter, more intimate, more dense communities, it's less expensive. You get critical mass and it's more affordable and it's more efficient.
I see. So you brought up an interesting point. I didn't know that the federal government reached out directly to hotel owners and hotel corporations here in Niagara Falls. There was an article that came out, and there's been a few articles that have come out on this. Premiers are really frustrated right now because the federal government, from what I see on headlines and in articles, is they're going directly to municipalities through the Housing Accelerator Fund.
Yes.
$4 billion. How has that affected you? What does that look like today, right now, for you specifically?
Well, we have a request in with Minister Fraser for that money. We haven't received anything yet. I know St. Catharines just announced yesterday they got $25.5 million.
Port Colborne, $9 million.
Yep, and they've got their money as well, which I'm happy for them. And I get it. They've got MPs that are in government right now, so maybe they got a little bit of an inside track on it. But I'm hopeful we'll be coming in right after them. I mean, the problem that the federal government is dealing with right now and the provincial government is we don't have enough housing. And here we are saying we will build. We're the ones that build it. The federal government doesn't build the houses. The provincial government does it. It's the municipalities.
And your relationship with the builders.
And our relationship with the builders, the Home Builders Association, and we're saying we're the ones that are telling you we need a new wastewater treatment plant, we need this infrastructure, we need that put in, and we need some support. So they recognize it, they've created the programs, but until we get the money, we're in a stalemate situation. We can't build, we can't move forward. And the problem doesn't get better on its own. We need money to move things forward. So that's where we're at right now.
I'm curious, and this is just pure curiosity. Your request for the money, we don't need to get into exactly what it is, but if you get that tomorrow, let's say, will that solve a lot of the problems here in Niagara Falls today?
It'll move the ball forward much quicker, much faster.
How much quicker?
Well, I'd probably get our planner to give us the specifics on that because she's the expert in this world.
Right.
I just know, I've got these great, talented people that work for us at the city, and we've got the best. And our general manager of planning said, Jim, this is the application. This is what we need. This is the reason. This is why. And my job is to go get the money. So her job is to execute on it. And similarly, from our municipal works department, our head engineer, general manager of municipal works says to me, Jim, we need this and this and this. Got it. And my job is to go get the money. So I'll lobby the provincial government, the federal government, wherever the money is. I shake the trees, and they're there with the baskets catching all the fruit that falls.
I love the analogy.
Yeah. Everything I do has got a story.
Right?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Even when we were talking before turning on the cameras. So do you feel like the step that the federal government took with this Housing Accelerator Fund was a positive step? Do you feel like this is something that needed to happen? Skip the premiers, get right in, get your hands dirty, let's get it done.
Yeah, I don't know. First of all, yes, the Housing Accelerator Fund is a necessary program, and we need the federal government to play an active role. I mean, they're the ones that control immigration. They have to help us open up the taps to the money to build more housing. I think they should be doing it in communication with all the premiers and their ministers of housing, because
get them to agree on it first.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes, there's another thing called ISIF funding, where we need to build a $400 million wastewater treatment plant in South Niagara Falls and Chippewa. And that's going to service Niagara Falls and Thorold. Thorold is the fastest growing area right now for housing in the region. Niagara Falls is right up there too. And then it'll take the pressure off the other wastewater treatment plants for St. Catharines, Niagara on the Lake, and other parts of the region. And typically this ISIF funding is a partnership of all three levels. So 33% municipal, provincial, and federal. So collectively, so same with this.
They all pitch in.
They all pitch in.
Okay, I just want to make that clear.
Yes, they do. And it makes 33 dollars because we all need it, but none of us on our own can really afford it. So in similar to the Accelerator Fund, and why they don't work with the provinces as well, maybe their thinking is we're skipping a step, we're going to make it quicker, we're going to deliver it right to the guys that are doing it. And maybe that's not a bad idea, but I think they should still be in communication with the provincial government so that when they're formulating their plans, they take this into account. So communication is the key. Can't have enough.
Well, it's funny. My next question was based on communication. It seems like there's a big disconnect. Has that disconnect always been around in Canada the last, say, 50 years? Or is it almost like panic mode right now, trying to solve something?
Well, for sure we're in panic mode. I mean, everybody realizes we have a crisis on our hands. And we've got more homeless than I've ever seen, more opioid addictions than I've ever seen, mental health. I mean, it seems everything's gone sideways and fallen off. So they realize the first thing is you got to put a roof over someone's head. I mean, they can't make good decisions when it's snowing on them and they're freezing. And you get them a roof over the head, get them into a warm environment. Next thing is get some food in their body, give them the nutrition that they need so they can think straight, and then get them the help that they need, whether it's counseling or whatever it is that they need to help them out. And in the current environment, we don't have enough roofs to put over people's heads. So we got people living in tents. We got a lot of people jammed into dwellings, and people, quite frankly, can't afford. Now, when people tell me the best deal they could find for a rental apartment was close to $2,000 a month for what they're looking for, it blows me away. So unfortunately, it takes years to build enough inventory, and it's going to take years it took years to create the problem. It's going to take years to fix it. The quicker it happens, the better.
Well, yeah, and back to my question of what's the definition of housing? It's changing. It's
Yes.
becoming the roof over the head.
Yep.
We don't care if you own it or if you rent. It's just a roof over the head.
Yep.
Home ownership is something that we're losing. I'm curious, what does that mean for my generation? Should we still strive for home ownership, or should we just rent, throw money in the stock market, and say goodbye?
That's a great question. Well, I'll tell you, it's funny now. Now it's morphing into something different, and we're getting hybrid models where now maybe you and two of your buddies buy a house together. Yep. So as far as I'm concerned, you got to get your oar in the water. Even if you buy a crappy, rundown little place that doesn't have a basement, you start, but now you own real estate, and the high tide will bring up your ship like everybody else's. So the model now, there might be
Jump on the inflation train.
Jump on, man. Telling you, because if you rent, you never build equity. Your landlord builds equity. And the only way to build it is you have to have ownership. So whatever way there is to get ownership, that's what you need to do. And if it means partner up with a bunch of buddies and bit by bit, and then once you've got equity, then you can borrow against that. I've got a good friend in Buffalo that owns lots of properties, and he just started out with 4. He bought a 4-plex. And then once the equity went up, the value went up, he at a certain point, instead of paying it off,
He refinanced.
he refinanced and bought another one. So he went from 4 to 8, and then 8 to 16, 16 to 32. And now he's got hundreds of units. And that's how he did it. So similarly, let's say you and 3 of your buddies buy a little rundown house, and you all own it. You have a bedroom each, and you share like that. And then bit by bit, each guy you can borrow till you can leverage that house till all 4 of you all own your own houses. Yeah. I know a guy that he owns 11,000 apartment units all around. He's a Niagara Falls guy. And he started off with one apartment building in Chippewa in Niagara Falls. And he goes, that one building has allowed me to buy and own thousands of units. And so it just starts, get your oar in the water. So yeah, ownership should still be a key. And even if it's a small piece of something big, that's okay. You don't have to own it all initially anyway.
Don't let panic mode control your decision making, because I think we are in panic mode, like you said, right now. And unfortunately, that means that a lot of people are just let's rent. But when the conversation then comes to building affordable units to live in, it's not about trying to build homes for people to own. It's about building homes for people to rent. And are you finding more developers now and builders are looking at the rent option and renting instead of trying to sell, because it's just more, I guess, profitable to rent?
Well, yeah, I can tell you this one entrepreneur, he's very wealthy, and it's all on rental. And I've talked to him many, many times. I've interviewed him many times, trying to get into his head and understand his thinking. But he does extremely well in this market. And also, a lot of developers are putting a portion of their development as affordable and attainable. So there's affordable and attainables for people that they call them the working poor. They maybe have 2-3 jobs, and they're working hard. They're hard working. They have great work ethic. They just don't make enough money.
So every build has that ideology, affordable and attainable.
Yep, for like 5% maybe. We'll say what portion of your build, and we try to incentivize the developers if they are willing to build some of them. And then where before back in the day, they did the old, like in Toronto, they had Jane and Finch, where they put all low rental housing in one area. Well, we realized that's the wrong way to do it, because you create a slum. So now you try to integrate it into the whole system, where in a building, you won't know what ones are subsidized and what ones aren't. So you got market rents and you've got subsidized rents. So nobody knows. Everybody's equal.
I kind of like that. I feel like that brings us as a community more together.
It does. And then if instead...
And you don't create such a division.
Exactly. And instead of you learning, because, it's nature versus nurture, are you born knowing what to do? No, that's like animals have got instinct. You've got to learn. So you learn by watching and mimicking. So if you see the people where you live, nobody goes to work, no one has jobs, you think it's normal. But when you're in an environment, you see, where's everybody going at 7:30, 8:30 in the morning? They're going to a job. Oh, a job. And so you don't get that systemic generational bad behavior where people realize a lot of things are learned. So you have to present that. So the idea of integrating into an overall community, I think it's a good way for everybody to learn and be empathetic.
I'm glad you made the point about affordable and attainable. I didn't know that. I made a note of it because I'm going to look into it later. I have an example for you on the affordable and attainable comment here. So Niagara Falls Review came out saying that, I guess, thousands of units have also been approved. Specifically, one project I want to talk about, though, is the Lundy's Lane project, the development. So I guess the applicant claims that 61% of the units being built inside of this development are considered affordable to individuals making $45,000 or less, which is equivalent to about $750 to $1,000 a month in rent. That's shocking. How is, you don't hear numbers that cheap anymore for rent. How is that happening? Is this subsidized? Like, what's going on?
Well, it's the cost of buildings, the cost of buildings. So maybe the finishings won't be as high end, and it's smaller units. So you look at the average hotel room is probably around 300 square feet. So when you look at the efficiency units that they're building these days, where they make them instead of, like, for example, dining rooms. A lot of houses traditionally had a dining room, but nobody ever ate in them. It was just an extra room. So now what people are doing, they're ripping the wall, they're making the kitchen bigger. So you see a lot of wasted space in a house. I look at my house. I mean, how much time do you spend in your bedroom? How much time do you spend? It's mostly the kitchen, I find. Most people gather in the kitchen. I read the paper in the kitchen. How much space do you need? Do you need 2,000 square feet? Do you need 1,000? Do you need 500? People have realized you need to be more efficient, especially the cost of space these days. I've seen some things in Asia where they've got these convertible hybrid units. They're so efficient, and you realize you don't need all that much. How much time do you spend in your house, period? If you take away sleeping, that 8 hours, how many hours are you actually in your dwelling? So question is, what do you need? So to make them smaller, makes them more affordable. That's bottom line.
My curiosity on this is, like, why aren't more municipalities doing this, or are they?
I think we're all this kind of was. So I laugh when I looked at my priorities when I first decided to run: affordable, attainable, homelessness. None of that. Opioid addictions, mental health. It wasn't on any of our radars. It wasn't on any of our 10-year business plans because it didn't exist like it does today. Today, it's become significantly worse, and I think the main reasons. Number one is, for sure, we've got so many more people that are living in our communities. And secondly, because of that, it's driven up the price of housing. It's forced more of them onto the streets. And the last thing was COVID. COVID jumped us 10 years ahead in so many ways on so many fronts, whether it's digital, data, technical. Now we have Zoom meetings. We've got hybrid work times. Like, the world's changed. COVID really jumped us ahead many, many years of where we were.
Can Niagara Falls expect to see more units at $750, $1,000 a month?
Yeah, well, we need to do that. We need some downward pressure on the rents. And I don't blame a landlord. A landlord wants to make money, and you want to have a good tenant and make as much money as you possibly can. And that's business. It's bottom line.
How do you apply that downward pressure? Are you do you subsidize these builders? Do you tell them, oh, you don't have to pay this tax or this tax? Or, like, what does that look like?
So through our planning and economic development offices, we have incentive programs for any of these developers that play with us.
I see.
And we try to incentivize them and create. So it's carrot and the stick. So stick doesn't work. Developer just say, I'm not building anymore. And they just sit down and I'll count my money and I'm not going to build. We try to incentivize them because at the end of the day, they're doing this to make money. We have to recognize their motive. So let's help them achieve their goal and let them help achieve our goal, which is more housing for more people, and bring down the cost of rent, bring down the price of the cost of houses, at least slow down the inflation of what's been going on. I mean, 8% was ridiculous for a while.
It's skyrocketing. I'm curious, are there any specific models you're looking at? Like, for example, does a tenant pay X percentage of their income towards rent, and then the municipal government, or I don't know how it specifically would work, pays the rest to the developer?
Because we're a two-tier municipality, meaning we have a regional government, the region handles all the social services through Niagara Regional Housing. So they will have these people that can't afford to live on their own, where they'll get subsidized through whether it's Ontario Works or whatever the program is, and that's administered through the regional government. So they're the ones that handle that specifically. I'll give an example of a creative way we're looking to do.
Yeah, please.
So the city of Niagara Falls, we identified all the property that we own. We own property in the downtown, and the good thing about downtowns, usually they got great transit, because back in the day, that's where all the buses went, the trains went, the subway, or the subways and bigger cities, streetcars. And so we've got a property that used to be our farmers market. Before that, it used to be a municipal work center. We cleaned up the land, and we're going to be going to tender probably next month. And we're going to go to all the building community and say, who wants to partner with us? We've got the land already. It's already been cleaned up. It's zoned. And we saved a lot of time, a lot of money. Who wants to partner with us?
Is this what they talk about when they say building on Crown land?
Yes, and that's Crown land will be for higher levels of government.
I see.
For us, this is municipal land, and we own a lot of land in the downtown. We're the biggest landlord. We own more than anybody, and we're going to put some of our land, we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're going to put it into play. And then the deal is we're going to ask for proposals. We're going to ask what portion of your build will be for affordable and attainable. So it'll be a competition. So we'll see what developer comes forward with the best plan for the most amount of people. Similarly, our old library on Victoria Avenue, which later became kind of a community center, it's the old Carnegie Library, we handed it to the region because they do social services, and it's now been transitional housing for people living on the streets, where we've got full-time nurses and counselors in the building. I believe it's 22 units where we help climatize them to get them back into the regular mainstream. You know, people don't realize sometimes you've been living on the street for so long, you forget that food doesn't just come in a package. It's not just about bags of chips. It's actual, and they have to teach them to cook, teach them to do their laundry, teach them personal grooming things, give them the counseling they need, get them on the financial programs they need, help them get integrated and get a job. So the city has played a role now, and it's a non-traditional role, but we've had to change because the world around us has changed.
Mm-hmm. A little shifting focus here, but still on housing. I want to talk a little bit about Airbnbs.
Yep.
Because in 2020 and 2021, I was talking to a few prominent investors, realtors in Niagara Falls, and they said Airbnbs were blowing up in Niagara Falls. Oh, yeah. What does that look like right now?
Well, it blew up, and when things blow up, they usually make a mess.
Yeah.
And we had a mess, and it was getting out of hand. So what started out as a good investment opportunity for people, you could buy a house, and you could rent it out through any kind of vacation rental platform, VRBO, Airbnb. There's lots of them out there. And the beauty, you could own it. You put a little lockbox on it. You have someone clean it when the people leave. It was easy money.
And they were making a lot of money.
A lot of money.
From what I understand.
But that added to the problem of not enough housing for people. And it drove up the price for housing. And then some people would buy 10 houses and hold them just for vacation rentals. So, and again, I don't blame people for trying to make money. We're all trying to make a buck. So good on you. But the problem is, a good idea had an unintended negative outcome. It drove up the price of housing. So, and here's the other problem. When you own a house or you live in a dwelling, you have the right to quiet enjoyment of your property. Well, that was disappearing because people were showing up in buses to party at these houses. And music all night, and it got out of hand. I know we had garbage and couches on the front lawns, and all night people couldn't sleep. They were tired at work the next day. It blew up. In Niagara Falls, of course, we're the #1 leisure destination in all of Canada. If you're going to have a vacation rental, this is one of the most popular places to have it, and it just blew up. So we've had to clamp down on it and put a lot of rules and restrictions. We don't want to stop people from making money, but you can't infringe on your neighbors, and we do have to control what's going on with our lack of housing inventory.
I can completely see that side. And I think you see the side of investors as well. Obviously, they want to make money, but you've got to do what's best for the community.
Right.
Last question on the Airbnb part. Where do you see Airbnb developing, say, in the next 5 to 10 years in Niagara Falls? I know a lot of investors want to know. I'm sure you've been asked this before. Jim, what are you doing with Airbnbs? Yeah. We got to know. What do you see that becoming?
So we've got a whole bunch of set of rules that we've learned through the process. And we don't want to take away the right, because a lot of people don't stay in a hotel for lots of reasons. Maybe, and I know with 3 kids, try renting a room with 5 people. Today, they rarely will let you have a cot anymore. And the reason is they say fire regulations, so you have to rent 2 rooms. And if you can rent a house, you have a place to park. Some hotels will charge you $80, $100 a night to park your car. Whereas a vacation rental, you can use the barbecue in the back. Some people travel with a dog. And a lot of hotels don't allow you to bring your pets with you. You can travel with your pet. You can have a bigger family. A lot of families are multi-generational. Maybe your parents live with you. Maybe they're disabled and they come with you, where you've got more options in a house. So some people, it serves a segment of the population much better than a hotel ever can. That's why Marriott is one of the biggest vacation rental companies in the world now themselves. They've gotten in on the Airbnb game, and they understand it's not going away. It's global.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of the hotel companies are now investing in this as well. They see it as it's another segment that does not get taken care of with a traditional hotel or motel. So I understand, as long as there's demand, there's going to be a market. And as long as there's a market, people are going to do it. And if you don't do it properly, they're going to go under the radar. And that's what's been happening. They found every time we put a mechanism in place to stop it, they come up with a new system. It's kind of like when the police had radar detectors, then people bought radar detectors. And then the police had, and it's this game. Everyone's trying to get a step ahead of the next. So same way, where before we could see from the listing what house it was. Well, then now they don't post what house it is until you get there. And it was a challenge. And then we got challenged in the courts. It was this unbelievable plethora of challenges. So we finally got things figured out. We know how to deal with now. Now, if you're renting your house out and you're not doing it legally, meaning you're licensed, meaning it's been inspected, fire department, that it's safe, and we notify your insurance company. We notify your mortgage company. And they find that very interesting because you have to have certain insurance to rent your place out.
I was going to ask you because I didn't write this down, but I think it was like 1,000 roughly Airbnbs are illegal, estimated in Niagara Falls right now. And I was going to ask you what you're doing to crack down on it, but you already answered that.
Oh yeah, and we're hiring extra people, and again, recognizing and respecting the fact that some are legitimate, but now you can only have a vacation. I know we call it Airbnb. It's like Kleenex, right? It's tissues. So vacation rentals, you're allowed them in 3 zones. You're allowed in commercial zones, tourist zones, and business zones. And that's the only places you're allowed Airbnb or vacation rental where there's nobody living there, just rentals. Then you've got B&B where you live in the unit, and those are allowed in different areas as well, where those ones we don't have problems with. When the owner lives on site, we don't have problems with those. Then the latest one now is we're allowing you to have room rentals within your house. And you're allowed to rent
for like $750 a month.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or sometimes they're getting a lot per night. And that's back in the day. That's what people did. They rented cabins or they rented rooms, and it was common form of lodging. So you rented a room in a house with another family. So that's what people are doing too now. So we're trying to satisfy the demand, but do it in a way that doesn't negatively infringe on the residents and the neighbors. So we're trying to find that balance. It's not been easy. I can tell you municipalities across the country and around the world are dealing with the same challenge. Some places like New York have outright banned them.
So you brought up community, and I'm glad you did, because we'll get into, the housing conversation can go on for 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
But when you mention community, I know the community doesn't necessarily love Airbnbs, although it, can, like typically investors who buy an Airbnb will reno the property, and maybe Niagara Falls needs a little bit of a facelift in certain communities. But there's still a lot of noise. There's still a lot of people who just don't like it. There's parties, whatnot. But we were talking how much you care about the community, and that you care that those people are having a lot of noise. They'll call you, I got a lot of noise, or even snow removal. You said you dealt with a guy, he called you about snow removal, and you handle that situation. You relieve tension points. The fact that you take the time to do that instead of just throwing it on somebody else is impressive enough. So my next question to you is, how would you define community? And what is Niagara Falls community to you?
Well, I think it's when you look out for your neighbor. And this is what I tell people about what's so great about Niagara Falls. And even though we're 100,000 people now, we still have that small town feel. And I'll give you an example. When a funeral drives by, people still pull over in Niagara Falls. They show that respect. In big cities, they don't do that. They couldn't care less. Here, you'll shovel your driveway, you'll do your neighbors. If your snow blower's out, you'll do all your immediate neighbors. My one neighbor, whenever they're baking certain things, I get a little package, tinfoil on my front porch. They made something for me.
Right.
It's
you probably get a lot of food to your door, eh?
Well, yeah, I do. I got to watch though, But it's, and I think that's amazing and you'll have street parties or street barbecues And that's what you watch the game together. You'll get in one house and watch whatever game is being played. Walking each other's dogs, knowing that's somebody's dog got loose, where you look out for each other. You actually care about each other. One of my houses a few ago, I sold to a guy from the GTA, and he goes, I've lived in my house for X amount of years. I still have never met my neighbors. And to hear him say, oh my God, people say hi to you here. Like, and things that we take for granted. I said, yeah. And they were just blown away that's what and they fell in love with the idea of a community. It's like joining a family.
Yeah.
Where you all look out for each other. You actually care about it. You actually say hi, good morning. Where you do things like that, and it's not weird. People aren't like running away or hiding their children. Like, why is this person talking? That's what community. And then, like the gentleman you mentioned the other day, it really frustrated a lot of things going on in his life. And it was the final thing that tipped him. His street didn't get plowed. And his wife's pregnant. He had to come home, and he's like, oh, and he was so mad, so frustrated. But he was right. We didn't plow it. His street was overlooked. But he called, and I give a sympathetic ear. I call him back the same day. Called. Turns out it was a subdivision. It was a new street. They didn't know the houses were occupied yet, and we found a little glitch in our system. So we were able to get it plowed, put him on the route.
And you fixed it within the same day?
We got it fixed that night at 2 a.m. They did a plow on his street, and he was added to the route now. So he'll never have to call
Same
in
with
again.
the potholes, too. You've got that app.
Yep.
I mean, it's incredible.
So that's another example of, potholes. So I asked the community, rather than just complain, be our eyes and ears and report the pothole. We'll fix it, but we don't know where they all are because potholes pop. They pop. They don't give you a lot of notice. They just pop one day. And when water seeps in the cracks and it freezes, water expands when it freezes and it lifts. It makes the crack even bigger. Yeah, drive over with a truck or a bus and boom, it pops. And all of a sudden, it's like overnight. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what it's literally overnight. So we'll patch it, use cold patch in the winter, and then summer we'll do a better job. But I say, just call it in. Go on your phone or go on the city's website. Just say what street it is between here and here. If you can take a picture, great. If you can't, that's okay. Within 24 hours, we'll get most of them filled on all major roads, secondary roads within 48 hours. We'll get it fixed right away. So the sooner you can tell us, we put it into the cartograph, it's into the queue, the team gets the list, and they go fix the holes. And that's where it's a team approach, where don't just complain, be part of the solution.
So what do you hope to see develop? Because you've done a lot so far in your, how many years of being mayor?
I'm in my 14th year.
14th year. Yeah. You've done a lot so far with the community. What do you hope to see consistently develop?
More of the same. And when I got here, it was all about customer service. For me, it's all about...
I can tell because I get a 5-minute response.
Yeah. Oh, I could go on and on and on and on. And I have to say, and I'm blessed, I've got an amazing city council. They all think the same way. They're all about customer service. They're all about doing the right thing. It's not about what's in it for me and how do I pump myself. How do I make it a better community? Because we all live here. We want it to be better. Same with our staff. So as a result, this kind of, like attracts like. We've attracted, when you build a fire, everyone comes in and get warm. And our staff here are phenomenal because they realize, number one, they're treated like family and they're respected. And we've attracted a level of competence unbelievable. So we've all got that same attitude. Not, why should I do this? Or it's an inconvenience, these people. Who are they, taxpayers? Why are they here?
Right.
That's the reason we're here, to make their life better. They've picked us to represent them, to make life better. Some people say to me, I know you can't fight City Hall. I go, baloney. I go, yes, you can, and I will help you. I said, and I had one lady say, on another issue in another part of town, well, you're just going to defend staff. I said, oh, no. I defend the truth. And if the staff are right, then yeah. If you're right, then it'll be you. I'm just seeking the truth. That's all. And we're going to not to get anyone in trouble, to make things right. So that's our focus here. So Richard Branson wrote a book, Like a Virgin, and there were two main concepts that helped him to become a successful billionaire many times over. And number one was innovation, and number two is customer service. So those are my two main mantras. If you can innovate and do it with great customer service, you're going to be very successful.
Hence, I brought up in the beginning of the interview, too, from what I've noticed and from what other people say, municipal governments are the core of a citizen feeling heard. They're the core. Because you don't get, great response times from your MPs or from the premiers, or you don't really, or the federal government. And I can't say I blame them. There's 40 million plus people probably reaching out to, right?
100%. And you're right. Nothing is closer to the people than the municipal government. We are the front lines. We're organic. We're right in the fabric of the people. We're easy to reach. We're at the same grocery store. We work here in the community. We're here.
You go to the same grocery store as another Niagara Falls citizen.
Absolutely.
That's an amazing thing.
Yeah, isn't that an amazing thing? And that's why it takes me so long to go grocery shopping.
You probably catch somebody in an alley every single time you're buying chips.
Oh, yeah. I remember when I'd have to go and pick up like 2 things at the grocery store, I'd say, I'll see you in an hour. And they're like, an hour? I said, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just getting 2 things. It'll take me an hour.
Especially on Sundays when the Bills are playing. I know everybody's talking about the Bills.
Oh, yeah. But I'm a huge Bills fan.
Me too.
I'm pumped. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I want to ask you, I asked you actually before we started rolling the cameras, the balance between you promoting tourism and, building residential infrastructure, developing that. Are those mutually exclusive or do they coincide in some way?
Well, they're definitely symbiotic, but a lot of people, it's funny. You'd think we're the #1 leisure destination in the country. We have 14 million people, 40,000 people count on tourism to feed their families. And literally everybody in this community has been touched by tourism directly or indirectly.
Wait, 40% of Niagara Falls
40,000 people in the Niagara region work in tourism. It's huge. It's the biggest employer. And here's the part that makes me laugh is, so most kids have worked somehow in tourism to pay for school or pay for something at some point. And if not directly, then indirectly. Maybe your parents did. Maybe you make things at a company that supplies the tourism industry. Like, people don't realize how integrated. So for example, today I met with the owner of Canadian Tire, Niagara Falls, Paul Medeiros, great guy, real entrepreneur, marketing genius. This guy knows how to merchandise. And we're talking about, the market's been tough the last period with, what's going on in the economy. And we were talking about, and how would Canadian Tire in the kind of north central end of the city have anything to do with tourism? Because all the tourism employees will buy the shovels from him and buy all the different products. He's directly involved. They buy cars in our community. And then the car guy buys groceries at Camiso's, and the staff at Camiso's shop. People think they're mutually exclusive. Absolutely not. We're all integrated. The one misconception in our community, though, some people will say, I'm tired of subsidizing tourism.
That's a big one. I'm glad you're addressing it.
Oh, yeah. And I have to explain to them. But there's a saying, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. So even though I'll explain to them how that's not the case, they generally, like a rubber band, snap back to where they were. But I don't want to waste I figure if they can pick up one tidbit, and maybe if you hear something a few times, it sinks in, tell them, the hotel industry, the tourism industry subsidizes the municipality. Give an example. And they go, I don't believe that. I go, let me give you a good empirical example.
Go.
The average hotel room, 300 square feet, pays more in property taxes than the average house. And they're like, I don't believe it. And I give an example. Well, let's take the Hilton. You know how big the footprint is. Call it a city block, 1 block. There's over 1,000 rooms there. To put 300 houses, how big of a subdivision would you need to build?
You just take up more land, expand it out.
Way more.
But they're
land.
expanding it up.
Exactly. So maybe you'd need 10, 20 times the amount of land. So that means that much more roads, water, sewer, sidewalk, snow plowing, bus, street lights. The list goes on and on and on. So when you condense it down into a small footprint and go up, not only do they pay more property taxes, they create jobs, they pay a ton of property taxes, and they're part of the fabric of the community. So when people go, well, how come it's nicer in the tourist area? And that's another misconception. It's not because we put more tax money there. They've got business improvement areas where they levy a portion of the property tax and they direct it into streetscape improvements and flowers and a street sweeper and whatever features on their area. And we've got 6 business improvement areas, BIAs, in Niagara Falls, where that's what they do in their area. So they keep it nicer and they take care of it.
I see. Okay, interesting. I got one more question for you. How do you build a society as a mayor, a society, a community here that takes responsibility for their own community, that are proud, patriotic for their community? What do you do to do that? Because you talked about how this is what you want to see, this is what you want to continue to develop, but how do you specifically do it?
That's a really good question. I'm going to illustrate it with a story. It reminded me back when I went off to school. And everyone said, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? The first thing I realized, kids here would say, oh, I can't wait to get the heck out of this town. But when I got away to school, every kid was saying that came from Montreal, came from Edmonton, came from Toronto. They couldn't wait to get out of their crappy town. When I realized it's just a thing teenagers say. They think the grass is so much greener. If only I lived here instead of there. And it's not true. And then the other thing, so I remember saying, I live in Niagara Falls, and a few people kind of giggled. And I thought, why are they giggling? I was, felt a little weird about it. And I said, what's so funny about that? And they go, well, Niagara Falls. And I said, I don't understand. They go, well, where do you live, on Clifton Hill? And I, honest to God, and I said, wow. I said, Niagara Falls is made up of residents, and we have schools and churches and parks and roads, and we're like every other city. And they said, I didn't know that. And it's hard to believe that people would think this, but this is exactly what happened to me. And then I said, yeah, but we live under the Ferris wheel. Dad thought that would be a good place to live.
We live under the Ferris wheel.
No, but I have a little fun with it. But my point is, Niagara Falls is misunderstood. They don't realize we're a community. So the first thing I say when I go to all the schools, I've been to every elementary school many times. I visit the high schools. Mayor of Milton, Gordon Krantz, who's longest serving mayor in Canadian history now. He's been mayor for 43 years. Unbelievable. Great guy. And he's only in his 80s, so he's got a lot of gas left in his tank. And Gordon, I asked him, whenever I go anywhere, Sam, I always say, success leaves clues. You don't have to learn everything the hard way. And I'll say, tell me everything you learned. I'd say when my kids were young to our babysitter, I would say it to a teacher, a barber, anybody. I'd say, sum it up for me.
You pick up a bit of information out of
every single
especially
time.
From a guy who's in his 80s, been in it for 45 years.
He gave me he said two things. Number one, get in with the youth. And he said, I have kids come to City Hall. Well, I took it to the next step. I go to the kids. I visit all the grade 4 to 8 and all the schools, and I've got a little presentation I do to get them engaged, to teach them, to give them ownership, to tell them, this is your city. It's not mine. It's your city. So when we put a new park playground, I need you to tell us when someone's vandalizing it. We need you to take care of the turf at the soccer field. We need you. And I've got a bunch of examples where I empower them. When you see a pothole and mom and dad are mad about it, why don't you call it into the city and we'll get it fixed? So you can do that for
giving them responsibility, like a parent would.
Ownership. It's your city. Call it in. If you broke your toy, you'd fix it. We broke our road. Help us fix it. So mom and dad won't be upset. And I give them these stories and examples. I teach them about democracy. I teach them about compromise. I teach them about all that. So that was number one. Number one, Gordon told me, the youth. And the second thing he said to me is, when you got to deliver bad news, which you do from time to time, he said, here's what I say. And it took me a while to be able to do this. You look at him and you say, well, do you want me to give you the truth, or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? And he said, they always say, give me the truth. He goes, all right. So I give them the news. Sometimes it's not what they want to hear, but they say, thank you for being honest. And that's what they want. They want honesty. Mm-hmm. And, it's not always what you experience when you get involved with politics. Just give it to them straight. They can handle it. But then tell them what they can do if they want to fix it. I don't like to ever say, you can't fight City Hall. I don't ever want to say that's the final answer. Say there's many ways we can get to where you want to be. And I try to help them get to their goals. And again, doesn't mean we're successful every time, but you try every time.
I'm curious. Again, I'm going to let my curiosity wander here. You do this very well. Do you see federal or provincial governments making an attempt to try and hear people more and more as the years progress? Because is it too idealistic thinking to think, from a naive 20-year-old, to think that a federal government can run it the same way you do, just with more people and more requests?
Well, that's a good question too. You have a lot of good questions.
Thank you.
It's a lot harder to do the higher you go up, because you have more people. And again, I'm on the front line. I can do it direct communication. But I think what they're realizing with social media and today's technology, there's easier direct access. I can send a tweet out to anybody in the world, the Pope. I can send it, and his people will get it. Will it get to him? I don't know, but his people will get it.
No, but the fact that he could potentially see it.
Yes.
I don't have to fly to Italy.
Yes, 100%. You don't have to go to the Vatican. But I've had people where I respond on social media, they're like, and they don't believe it's me. They'll say, who is this? Or is this one of the mayor's staff? And I tell them, call me if you want. It's me. And they still don't believe me. And they don't think, yeah, do I have people that help me? Of course. I get hundreds of messages a day, hundreds. Like, I physically can't do it all, but I do as much as I physically can. And any that aren't simple, that need extra attention, I'm engaged. If I can't fix it with my cell, I phone them. I was here last night till 8 o'clock, returning phone calls. And a lot of them are in shock. They're in shock. I said, I can't get you an answer till tomorrow because nobody's here. There's cleaning guys here, but just me and
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
But I go, but I'll get you an answer. Give me 48 hours. I'll get you an answer. And I try to under promise and over deliver. I try. So to answer your question, it's not easy, but there's systems that you can develop. And we've developed a lot here at the city of Niagara Falls. I've had other mayors from across Ontario call me and say, can I use this system? For an example, social media often brings out the worst in people. People can be nasty, or before you put it through your filters of, do I say that out loud? Well, now today, people, they just throw it out there. Yeah, they don't care. And I've got a respect zone where if you cross a certain line, you're blocked. You're not allowed. You can criticize me. I'm okay with that. If you can disagree with me, I'm okay, but you have to do it respectfully. And if you, and same with other people, you have to be respectful to other people in the community. As soon as they cross a line of disrespect, you're blocked. And I don't apologize for that.
So I got one more question around this, because I wonder, I get in arguments with some people sometimes, and I'm younger, so I'm considered a little bit more naive. I don't really fully know, and maybe I think the world is all sunshine and rainbows.
It's not?
I hope so.
Yeah.
But when the federal or provincial government is getting people complaining like this, one thing that I find, like when you tell me that you take the call from the pissed off person,
Yep.
and you make it your goal to make them feel heard, what do you feel Canada can continue or do in a new way to make citizens continue to feel more heard?
Okay. It's the opposite of arrogance. Arrogance is, I know better for you than you know for you. And being heard, and that's what people want. Mary Ash Kay used to say, everyone walks around with a sign saying, notice me. So the first thing I do is when we talk, I repeat back to you what you just said, just to make sure I got it right. So if I got this straight, you're upset that we didn't plow your road, we haven't put your top coat of asphalt down yet, and you don't know when that park's going in. Do I got that right? Yeah. And I validate your concerns. You've got every right to be upset. I'm not going to blindly defend that we do everything right. So you have a right to be upset. Let me get you answers. I can't promise you everything. I promise you I'll get you answers. You might not like it all, but I will. And then I ask him, is that reasonable? Okay, then leave it with me. And then I do what I say. I say what I'm going to do, then I do what I say. And people respect that. And I've had people say about other politicians, because I ask, what did you think of this politician or that
You
one?
probably get a lot of flack from other ones coming to you.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But you know what happens more often than not? They start doing the same approach. And I tell them, listen, here's what I do. And it seems to work. And people say, well, at least he tried. And they don't expect you're going to bat 1,000. Who knocks it out of the park every time? You try. And sometimes I try to be creative with things, because I'm used to, I don't think linear. I think there's lots of ways to do everything. So that's why I tell people, what do you want done? Don't tell me how to do it.
Well, you're addressing the problems head on. That's what I hear is you're not afraid to look somebody in the eye or say to them over the phone, this is the problem. I hear what you're saying. Unfortunately, this is just the way that we run. I can look at, new opportunities in the future, but you still, you're like it's like a mother, like a father.
Yeah.
You make your child feel heard.
Yep.
And I have been flagged for, not flagged, but called out for idealistic thinking by wondering, can the federal government or the provincial government do that as well?
It's a lot harder for them because they've got a big country with, like you said, more than 40 million people. I got 100,000. So it's a lot. I got to tip my hat to Doug Ford. He gives his cell phone number out all the time.
Yeah,
I've been at
heard
events.
That's incredible.
Oh my God. I'm like, I don't do, I'll give it out, but I've never said to a room of people, take down this number. I never do that. I get, as it is, I get overwhelmed. I get so many messages. I got to charge my phone twice a day. How he does that, and you want to know? He returns calls. So they just had a big rally in Fort Erie about their hospital, and they publicly gave out his phone number. He was phoning people back till late at night. I thought, I'm telling you, I tip my hat to that. He's willing to face the music. He's willing to admit when he's wrong. He's not afraid to go back the path when he went down the wrong path or down the wrong way. I respect people that admit they're wrong. I had one situation where our staff, we cut down the wrong tree on someone's property. It's like, you hear of doctors cutting off the wrong limb. And so my son recently had to have shoulder surgery, and we kept going over it. No, yes. He was so paranoid. And you hear these stories, and they happen, not often, but they happen. Same thing. So we took down the wrong tree. And the first thing, the lady was furious. They planted this tree a long time ago. And I thought, I'm not going to defend, say, well, because this, I said, first of all, on behalf of the city, I'm very sorry. That's the first thing. Own
It
it.
lowers it, right? It lowers the
Instant.
tension right away.
I tell my kids all the time, just own it. Like, don't give me excuses. Just own it. If you did it, it's okay. We can deal with it. We can't deal with BS or denial. But first own it. That takes away a whole layer of the onion. So then now that we dealt, okay, now what are we going to do? Okay, now that and then we rectified the situation. The people were happy. I mean, they're still disappointed, but they're happy. Their problem was addressed in a way that was satisfactory to them. So that's the thing, is you got to be willing to feel the heat. So when we raised taxes past year, it was the highest we've raised. It was a correction year, and I admit it. And I got some very, very angry people, and I get it. Some people are choosing between mortgage and food, and they're struggling already, and groceries went up. Like the one guy said to me, my groceries went up, my gas went up. He listed 10 bills that went up. And I said, sir, with all due respect, all of those bills we pay to at the city, and ours all went up. All of our staff wages went up. Our gas went up. Our asphalt went up. I went through our vehicles, everything went up. So we're in the same situation as you. But again, because we're front facing, I'm the guy.
You deal with all the. What was the saying you said? The federal, provincial, and
federal government has got all the money. Provincial government has all the power, and the municipal government has all the problems. So,
love that.
And the other thing, there's another thing they say is poop flows downhill. And I'm at the bottom of the hill. I'm a pothole politician, and I'm okay with that. But I know it's coming my way, right? So I prepare for it. But I found coping mechanisms. Is don't hide from it. Address it head on. When you make a mistake, own it, admit it, and then work to find a solution that works for everybody.
I see how much you enjoy it. I really can. And the way you speak and your mannerisms, like, it shows you enjoy.
I do.
What you do, and you love what you do. I'm running your clock shy here. I apologize, but I do have a couple questions around healthcare.
Yeah, sure.
So, from what I understand, you're trying to raise money right now to build a hospital in Niagara Falls, right? Coming from somebody who is growing up near Niagara Falls, and we've got some different hospitals. We've got the hospital in St. Catharines. My office is located right near there. Mm-hmm. Does the federal, provincial, what responsibilities do the federal and provincial governments hold in healthcare in certain municipalities? Can you just explain that?
Yep. So the provincial government is in charge of healthcare, and they do get some transfer money from the federal government, but it's all controlled by the provincial government. The provincial government will build the hospital, but the community has to raise the money to put everything inside of it. The PET scans, the CAT scans, the MRIs. Okay. Yeah. So the first challenge, this is a good story. So when I first ran for mayor, I put a 10-year business plan together, again, which was uncommon. And I went after the big tickets, the GO train, a hospital, a university. People said, like, you're on crack.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had a former MPP tell me, listen.
Really?
In your best life, you might get one. Of them. And I said, well, in my world, I can ask for everything. You can tell me no. You can tell me to pound salt.
Better to get a no than not get an answer.
100%. And I said, but if you miss all the shots you don't take, right? And some famous basketball player. Yeah, right? And Wayne, his dad used to say to him, don't go to where the puck is, go to where the puck is going to be. That's what his dad used to tell me. So I realized what we needed, and I thought, this is called all-out massive action. We're going for everything. So with the hospital, it's a long story. I won't give you all the details, but the main thing was we had to identify where in the region it was going to go. Once we did that, then I went to landowners in the area, along with our economic development team, and we found landowners, and I said, would you like to donate 30 acres? And why would I do that?
Donate?
Yeah, donate. So I got 30 acres donated, because at that time, there was no hospital. Land was cheap. And I said, because if we build a hospital here, the rest of your land's going to go up in value. It'll be worth more than all of your land is today.
Wow.
Because you have to start with the end in mind. And when you're selling something.
That's resourcefulness.
Well, you know what? Here's the key. If I'm selling you something, I got to start with what's in it for you. Yeah. Of course, I want to sell it so I make money. What's in it? Why would you buy it? Does it slice? Does it dice? You going to throw something in with it? So this is where you've got to start, where too many politicians go cap in hand. This is what we need.
And they just hand the money over.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you can't just say what you need and what you want. What's in it for them? Here's what's in it for you, minister, premier, prime minister, whatever. What's in it for them? So I went to the landowners and told them. And it was a long shot at the time. Once we got the land donated, then we put a billboard up. And it said, future site of the new Niagara Falls Hospital. And I remember the Minister of Health at the time, Deb Matthews, and I give her such credit, such respect. She could have reacted in a lot of ways, and she just said, how nice. The mayor's making provincial announcements now. She was so classy, and I give her respect. And then the Ford government agreed to uphold and build the hospital, and they approved it, Treasury Board and whatnot, $3.6 billion hospital. Yeah, when it's done, because they have to finance it, build it, operate it.
So that's including the building plus your contribution.
Well, no, and on top of that, we have to raise money.
How much do you have to raise?
Well, originally the target was 40 million because St. Catharines had to raise 25 million 11 years ago. So ours was 40 million.
So you're guesstimating too with those numbers. Like, yeah, how much can you really know?
Well, you don't. You kind of don't. And again,
And you're not a healthcare. Like, it's tough. You're relying on other people to tell you too.
I'm an expert at nothing. I always say, I'm just figuring things out as I go. My only superpower is I don't quit. That's my only thing, is I don't ever give up. I just think there's another way. There's another way. There's another way. I just don't stop. So anyway, in this regard, so the first challenge was finding the location. Second challenge was finding the land. Third challenge was getting the province to build it. Next challenge was now we got to raise 40 million in the community. So I offered, because I didn't want any excuses, I will help raise the money. So I'm capital campaign co-chair along with Harry Oakes, and the two of us are out raising the money, along with the foundation team at the hospital. We work together, but we're the guys out front knocking on the doors to people with the money, and then they do all the details behind the scenes, right? The naming of this piece and that piece. So anyway, we hit the 40 million, we did well, and then we raised the target to 50 million. Then we hit the 50 million target, so now we raised it to 100 million. So we're at right now, I think 63.
Come on.
Yeah, so we'll do it. We'll do it. We'll hit the 100 million. And the good thing about hitting the 100 million, we don't have to rely on the parking revenues and the Tim Hortons and the retail and the sandwich shop and the hospital and the gift shop
to make you money.
No, because that'll be extra money, but we'll have already paid for all the major things inside the hospital with $100 million. So we decided, let's just go all out massive action. Let's get it all done. So we did that. And that was our same approach getting the GO train. I remember the minister told me, Mayor, no one's told you this, but you're not getting the GO train. And that's another story for another time. But 2 years later, he made the announcement in St. Catharines, the GO train. And anyway, I've been so fortunate, surrounded by awesome people that make me look good every day. They all buy into the vision of where we're going. We all roll the boat together, and we've been able to deliver some things. And the other thing my mom always said to me, don't forget where you came from. So our family's big on staying humble. If anybody thinks they're better than anybody, everybody's brought back down to earth real fast. You got to stay. I say it to my kids all the time. I don't care what you are, who you become, what you make. Stay humble. Just keep your feet firmly planted on the ground. I said, that's where you need to be. That's where all the action is. And we're all about that. Don't forget where you came from. My mom used to always say too, and grow where you're planted. Because people said, are you going to move on to provincial or federal? For me, it's not for
That's always a big question.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not.
Surprisingly, I didn't have that in my notes.
Yeah, I know. People ask you, they go, well, obviously you're moving on. I said, no, obviously nothing. I said, I don't have any aspirations to go provincial or federal.
Do you feel like you can get more done in the position you're in?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm hands-on here. I can get more done, and I get to see the eyes and the faces of the people I serve, and I get a great deal of satisfaction out of that. Like, I jump out of bed to do my job, and I say the day I don't, I will pack it in, and I won't be doing it forever. I'm going to have to pass the baton at some point to the next person, and but I'm the biggest cheerleader for Niagara Falls. I bleed Niagara Falls. I bleed Niagara region. I love this area. I believe in it. I've always thought we've got things no other region has. Finally, the GTA has discovered us. Now they want a piece of us. I always said everything about this community is phenomenal, whether it's the tender fruit, the fresh fruit, the southerly climate, the amazing wineries, the kicker beaches along Lake Erie, the tourism mecca, which means we've got great entertainment attractions, the theater, we got the canal, we've got rail. Like, we have everything here. We've got 4 border crossings. We're internationally known. You can't go anywhere in the world. And I tell this to the kids in the schools, and I say, when you say you're from Niagara Falls, you be proud that you're in one of the most famous destinations on this planet. Niagara Falls is in that same sentence as Tokyo, New York. It is famous, and I've been many places around the world. I've been all over China and India and places where you think maybe they don't know Niagara Falls. They all know. It's instant. I say we're the Coca-Cola of municipalities.
And how does that make you feel as the mayor of this community, knowing that somebody in China or India knows what Niagara Falls is?
Let me tell you something. I feel very proud because growing up, I don't know, we're always like that honky-tonk tourist town. I almost looked down on it. Like I said, when I went to university and they were like, Niagara Falls, and they giggled. And I thought, but then I'm like, no, be proud of who you are. Be proud of where you come from. And because the rest of the world doesn't see you the way you think we here see ourselves, they see us as a big gorilla, 600-pound gorilla. And it's funny because Dalton McGuinty was a premier a few ago, and he was telling us a story. This is a great story. So people in Toronto often think they're the center of the universe. And yeah, in Ontario, you are, and economically, for sure. But when it comes to globally, the brand, not even close. Niagara Falls is much more famous than Toronto. I hasten to say even maybe more famous than Canada. The brand Niagara Falls is huge. So, and you don't realize, the more you travel, you realize how big. Like, so Dalton McGuinty telling the stories in Beijing, thousands of business people, and he's addressing them. He's trying to explain who he is. I'm the Premier of Ontario. And they're like, okay, what is that? And he's trying to explain through an interpreter. I've got 14 million people. Now we've got 15 million people. He goes, I've got, and of course there was no reaction from the crowd. And he thought, do they not understand 15 million? Well, no, because in China, 15 million is considered a small city, a little city. And then he said, I have big cities like Toronto with 4.5 million. No reaction. I said, of course, that's a village in China. They've got cities with almost as many as Canada has. And then he said, I've got the CN Tower. And he started to name these things off. And he goes, I panicked. I thought either they're totally unimpressed or the interpreter's not interpreting what I'm saying. But either way, I lost the crowd. They're not interested in what I have to say. So he goes, I panicked. And I blurted out, I have Niagara Falls. He said, I got a standing ovation. And they just kept clapping.
They love it.
And so when I was there, same thing, the mayor of Niagara Falls, it wasn't because of me. They don't know who I am. Who am I? But because I'm from Niagara Falls, I was important. And it was a great feeling to know that around the world, Niagara Falls is up there with the big brands of the planet. We should be proud.
Well, Jim, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. And
Thank
you were so brutally honest in so many ways.
Brutal for sure.
And I need that. We need more of that. So thank you. And to everybody listening, watching, I'm going to leave you with this. Make sure to challenge your own thinking, engage in differences, and listen to new perspectives. Thank you, Mayor Jim Diodati of Niagara Falls. We'll see you soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.